Okay, I'd like to call the January 26th Board of Selectmen special meeting to order at 6:30. We'll run a quick special meeting and then we'll go right into the work session. First item on the agenda is approval of HB 1552, establishing an assessing certification board. Jim, do you want to start this, or are we going to go right to Todd?
I think we should go right to Todd on this. He's provided a draft letter that he would like the Board of Selectmen to sign and that we can send in. He's provided me where it should go. Todd will be able to speak on his behalf. Todd?
Thank you. So I'm going to have to apologize in advance for my dog. But Happy New Year. So this, in short, this legislation is about assessing standards board. At their recommendation, it was called by the two state representatives on the assessing standards board, one Democrat, one Republican. In short, what it does is it removes the existing function of assessor certification from the assessing standards board and the Department of Revenue to the Office of Professional Licensing and Certification. And that's the agency that administers all the other professional licenses in the state. So the thought is that is probably a more effective agency to administer this certification. So the legislation itself has actually been written very, very similar to the New Hampshire Real Estate Appraisal Board. And I was on the Assessment Standards Board, if you didn't know, from 2007 to 2015, and that's when we implemented the revocation rules. And at the time, we were, there was some hesitancy to have it all in one spot, but we figured, to get things for the ease of implementation, we would leave it with the DRA for now. And it's become evident to most people involved that the DRA lacks a little bit of the ability to administer this effectively. So the thought is, if it goes to OPLC, it'll be administered more effectively. So I'm hopeful that U.S. board would agree to support it, or if not, perhaps individually. There's a link that I sent Jim to log in and either oppose or support. Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. It's basically it's moving an existing function and creating an autonomous certification that's going to be made up of. It'll have 3 assessors. It'll have the commissioner of revenues representative, and it'll have 3 members of the public. And so that it wouldn't even be a majority of assessors, but it would be a more representative board of the association.
Okay.
And that hearing is Monday, the 31st, and any testimony closes at 11:59 a.m. on Monday.
Board members, anybody have any questions, concerns about this? Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion that we sign the letter provided to us?
I make a motion that we sign the letter in reference to House Bill 1552 dealing with licensing of assessors.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll sign that tonight, and Jim will get it in the mail.
All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was good. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the signing of the 2022 town warrant. And before we get into that, let me read and inform the public that the first session of the annual meeting will be on Tuesday, February 8th, 2022, snow date February 10th, 2022. at 7 p.m. at the Kingswood Art Center, 21 McManus Road, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire. The second session of the annual meeting, the official ballot voting, is on Tuesday, March 8, 2022, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., Great Hall, Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire. Jim, do you have anything to tell us about the warrant?
So we've gone through the warrant. We've done a final run through of it. It was sent to all department heads who had issues or warrants to be discussed. It's been approved by New Hampshire DRA. So I do believe we have a final document here. By you approving this evening and signing it, that meets our obligation statutorily, and we will get it posted, and we will be in good shape to go for the deliberative session.
Was it sent out to all the board members?
It was. Yes.
You all got it and saw it, okay. Does anybody want to make a motion for the board to sign the 2022 warrant?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All righty. I just want to also, Dave Senecal reminded me that there are seats up for offices in town, and you can sign up through 5 o'clock on Friday. I know there's one selectman, there are a couple planning board, budget seats up, so take a look at it, and if you're interested, please sign up.
One other quick item, Madam Chairperson. In your signature folder tonight, there will be a signature page for our appointed treasurer, Carl Baggy, that you guys did not sign previously. I have that in here for you to sign this evening so he can be sworn in by the town clerk.
Okay. Well, we will move on now into our work session, and we'll start. I'm assuming everybody got material, got emailed out to you? Good. What way I thought we might handle it today, I was thinking about some of the things that we needed to cover, and the first thing I thought is we needed to come up with a purpose. Why are we here together? So we all are in agreement on why we're here. I guess what I'm looking for, and I think that we've done successfully, is we need to start a public-private partnership here, and that we get our avenues of communication open, and so that we're all working in the same direction. So we are going to need to decide where we want the trails or paths, whether we want them single or multi-use, the types, whether we want them walking, recreation, whether we want climbing trails, flow trails, special use, optimal trails. What is it that we're looking for, and what land we may want to use to do this. So I'll ask any of the other board members if they have anything they want to add to that, and the committee members in terms of what you see us here today to do and what you're looking for.
The only thing I think, Linda, is when we're deciding what kind of trails we want and where we want them, we have to look at more than just the want of some people, a lot of people, or a few people. We need to look at that this is on town property and that it should have the use availability for all people, meaning that everybody should be capable of using something that's on town property. Everybody's capable of walking down sidewalks, walking down the bridge falls path, et cetera, et cetera. And I also think that we need to look at this as a whole package. What's it going to cost to maintain, to use, the impact on fire and rescue, and the impact on our departments.
Okay. Luke, do you have anything to add?
I think when you look at, to piggyback off Brian a little bit, but I think we'll get to that point later on, the purpose, is to make sure that we're providing, trails and other activities in Wolfeboro that are consistent not only with the mission of the trails and all that stuff, but also with the intent of the master plan, and that, that everybody, especially things on town property, are going to benefit, the entire community. And I think that's why this is going to give us such a good opportunity now, working directly and coming up with this committee to formalize, how we move forward, the mistakes that were made in the past, and how we move forward together.
Dave? You're fine. Brad?
Yeah, I think, all those things that were just mentioned, and plus also we probably need to take a look at any potential conflicts where one type of trail meets, joins, or crosses another type of trail, say if it's a bike trail crossing a cross-country ski trail or a walking trail or something like that. So we really need to look at, the entire picture here, not just the bike trail portion. There's a lot of different uses of these trails. As Brian pointed out, we have, the Bridge Falls pathway, we have a lot of, there's walking, there's all sorts of different things that get used for. We just need to be cognizant of the different types of activities that can occur and any possible conflicts that would occur there that because we don't want anybody getting, injured or whatever there. Then that, calls out our safety personnel to, get out there and stuff, which none of these are going to be that easily accessed by that kind of personnel. So it's just something to be aware of, that's all.
Rudy, what do you?
Yeah, well, I guess from as representing Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance.
Can you just use the mic, please?
Sorry.
So people in
I don't
TV
know how
world
close
can
I
hear.
need to get to it.
You got to pull it really close to you. You almost have to chew on it.
So as representing Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance, I would say from our perspective, it's, why are we here today? What is, the relationship between Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance, WSA, and the town, and trying to make sure that, there'll be lots of, there's tons of different types of trails, but which trails will WSA be behind and go forth with versus, the town can build trails on their own also. And just, where we stand today, I'm going to say especially with Abenaki Ski Area, because that's kind of what brought us here together and what happened and how to move forward from that, and then how to just keep moving forward in the future with like MOUs between WSA and the town for different parts of properties within town. What's WSA and how are we trying to help the town and benefit the town?
Okay.
I think that's probably about it.
Dan?
Our approach at the Conservation Commission has always been not to provide access to everything for every possible use. It was to design a trail based on the topography that would meet the best possible use for different focus groups. The trails at Fernald are mountain bike based, but that doesn't mean that they can't be snowshoed or cross-country skied or walked on during certain times of the year. The trail at Whiteface is a hiking trail. It's not acceptable for bike use, and nobody has proposed that that be done. The trails at Front Bay were designed as handicapped accessible trails. So we have tried to take the different properties and look at that property and determine what trails would be the best possible use for that location. I would be in favor of taking that approach going forward here.
Thank you. Lynn?
I am new to this process. I think I'm here also representing the chamber organization and looking at the ties to the master plan, as Luke indicated, I think is an important part of this process. There's many stakeholders out there that can benefit from this kind of project, and I don't know if I have anything more to add. Great comment.
Okay. Well, I did some research on pathway committees of Wolfeboro and when they seem to have started. And it looked like there was a group that started around 2008. They came to the Board of Selectmen and asked for permission to use area out by our storage pond using Filter Bed Road to get from Abenaki out to Sewell Woods. I looked at the annual reports, and that pathway committee was there up until 2016. My guess is once Rob Houseman left, who was an avid biker and person who liked to use trails, it kind of faded. Also at that time, there was the Pathways of Wolfeboro, which was a private entity that was raising the money to do the work on the trails. And that was George Vanderheiden, Jim Eisenhower, Kathy Barnard. And they went out and they raised money to do a lot of the work on the trails for Abenaki and for Sewer Woods. And they had I'll call it an endowment, but they left $40,000 to maintain the trails. I got a hold of George, who told me it was $40,000. I got a hold of Peter Cole, who was also on the committee, and said that they had handed that money over to Single Track, and that money was to be used just for maintenance. And do you still have that?
Yes.
Okay, so there is that can do the maintenance part of those.
Those, right.
Okay.
And there's possible, talking with like Sewer Woods in that area, there's possible proposed expansion of those same sort of trails in there.
I didn't hear it for expansion. I heard it for.
No, not that money.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. So we're clear that that money is for maintenance of those two
Yes.
and not for any creation of
Correct.
new. Okay. So that's kind of where we go. So I think we were all in kind of sync for a while, and then we kind of stopped. The people who were the motivators were no longer there, and I think we lost our communication. And if we can get back to communicating, we can work together to make it happen. So I kind of saw it as a public-private partnership. We had the Pathway Committee of a town committee, and then you had the private fundraising arm of that. So it gave me some thought of how we may want to also look at it here. So maybe the first thing we should do as we talk about the many, I think Dan brought this up, the many different types of trails that we are looking for or we should have, and how many of the I'll call them high-end trails do we have and need. And so I don't know where maybe you can give us a little better idea where you're heading in your committee and what you're looking for, and what was started up at the end of Abenaki and where that built into a longer plan.
Yep, so kind of just, I'll give you the brief history as I know it of WSA. So when the Conservation Committee approved to have trails built out in Fernald Station and contracted that out, and that was kind of, for me, that was my first exposure to single track trails. We've been riding bike trails in town, double track trails, old class 6 roads, snowmobile roads for years, and this is like a new thing, and honestly quite impressed and found out how fun it was. And along with the evolution of mountain bikes, where they have come in the last 8 years, really just kind of brought the whole sport, back to, the front again. Mountain biking as a sport has just completely taken off again. So with those trails and what was going on in there was another area over in Guilford called Ramblin' View Farm. They had very similar trails, and it was amazing. We were like, wow, this is wonderful. So that's when myself and another gentleman talked with Steve Flagg, and we were looking at the trails, the snowshoe trails in Sioux Woods, and said, hey, what if we kind of take the snowshoe trails and turn them into mountain bike trails? It's great for the Nordic skier, it's good for everything else. And so Steve was like, sure. We moved forward with that. The brief history of that is the WXC MOU didn't necessarily have the correct permission to do what we did. So that's really when I think Wolfeboro single track started, and also looking at the trails that were going to Fernald, looking at the trails we had done in Abenaki, what else could we do in town? There was talk of Trask Mountain Trails, and to have a organization that would help oversee and kind of manage and make sure the right people knew and what was going on. And, when people came to ride, we would be, create a website for maps and signage and everything else. So that said, We have created an MOU with LRCT for Sewell Woods. They're incredibly happy with what we're doing and the work that we're doing out there. We have more projects planned out there. Then when the Conservation Committee had the trails on, we'll call it the west side of the brook built, the newest ones that were just built this summer, you know, those came into play. And at that same time, when Bellaterra Designs came, he's the one who built the trails in Fernald, and then he left. He was down in Arkansas for a while. He came back. He was all fired up about what was going, you know, what had happened since he left. Where are we? And he wanted to live here, so he was looking, you know, since that's his business, trail building. Well, what else can we do? How can I get involved? So he was involved with WSA, and you know, he did all the groundwork. He walked around, he talked to people. I know he was in this building a lot. And he talked to certain people, came through the Nordic skier we found, had a lot of interest, and they would like to see trails built in town. And so that's where the Abenaki project started. This donor said he would love to have trails built. Abenaki was a great location. He'd like to do the downhill riding. So this isn't the multi-use trail. This is very specific downhill bike trails. And so more groundwork was done in town. He talked to a bunch, we heard Tavis speak at the last meeting we were at, and kind of his story behind the whole thing. And basically he got permission, though it wasn't the right permission. In his mind, he got permission to go do what was done at Abenaki.
Lester.
Andrew Lester, yeah, and we'll just say Bellaterra Designs.
Okay, Bellaterra Designs felt they had the approval of the town to do it.
They had the approval of the town as far as everybody that was concerned. I mean, WSA did not ask for permission to go do that. That was done. Really, Wolfeboro Single Track was, we were the donor. We were the middleman as a nonprofit to receive the donations for the contract to pay to have those trails, which they are currently done. So that's where we stand, and that's kind of what brought us here. We did a little bit of work. Dan had some Conservation Commission, had other people build trails at Trask Mountain that were kind of there. They didn't really take off all that much, but there was more work that would like to get done over there because that's a great location. As far as where WSA came in, I think the mountain biking, trying to then the idea of connections. So you have downtown, you can easily ride to Sewell Woods, then you can go over and you can easily ride to cross Filterbet Road, get into Abenaki and ride the trails that have been in there for a long time. Then you can, you can take the rail trail from here all the way to Fernald and ride all those trails. And then it was, well, how can we connect the Nick? How can you connect the high school? Beyond the high school, there's Camp School Road and there's trails that will take you all the way to Moose Mountain. And then if you cross Middleton Road near up there, you can then take more trails that can take you all the way down to the Alton Sand Pit and all the way down to Merry Meeting Lake. So there's a huge opportunity for connections. And then was kind of what we considered our job was to help manage that. And then obviously everything came to a head with the Abenaki thing. And so a lot of my mind is, explaining where we are, how we are, and how do we move forward from here. And just, I kind of forgot what we're talking about.
Yeah,
So, did I answer there was a question, but I don't know, I kind of kept going.
No, it was good. There's a lot of information, and what I'll do is I'll open it up to other board members who might like to ask you some questions. Anybody?
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
So Spencer Simlin, he's the big donor behind everything?
It's Yum Yum Shop.
Yeah. I have some questions. I'm overwhelmed because what I did was I started looking at other groups in the area, and I'm trying to pull it up on my phone to see if I can find them again. And trail areas, the New Boston. Now, tell me if you can explain any of these to me. The New Boston Rail Trail.
Yeah.
The Greenwoods Lands Foundation Trail, the Parker Mountain Trail, the Franklin, the trails.
Franklin Falls.
Yeah, and those are run by or managed by the federal government, aren't they?
I believe it is.
Yeah, it's, Linda, what's the federal government, what's the group? Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
Right, they had a private group called NEMBA come in and build those trails.
yeah, and Rambling View Farms and Highland Trails. Are you
Yes.
familiar with Highland Trails?
Very, yep.
Yeah. Now, these are all trails of multi-use
And no. So,
or more mountain bikey, or what are they?
well, that's right. So, the ones that I would assume you say rail trail are just like our rail trail.
Yeah.
So, you can take a rail trail from here to Canada, from here down to Maryland if you want, right? There's also, then you get into Ramblin'. So Ramblin' is private land. They started off with wide cross-country network of trails, but then they also built single-track trails. They probably have about 10 or 12 miles of trails in there.
Now, Highland is also private, right?
And Highland is private, and Highland is a very specific downhill mountain bike park. So they have lift service where you put your bikes on the lift, you go to the top, and that is basically what Abenaki has. So that sort of a trail, but it has,
And they charge yearly memberships or daily fees?
No, basically it's a lift ticket. You go where you buy a lift ticket.
$58 a day, $54 a day?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm starting to talk to them and find out, because I need to find out, I got to wrap my hand around all this. This is a ton. What's the maintenance cost? Why are some private? Why are some on state land? Why are some on?
I think they build them where they can. You look at
Yeah.
Green Woodlands, there's a guy with, thousands of acres. He's got amazing trails over there that were built similar to what we're looking to do at Abenaki.
Green Woodlands.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's over.
And are those all downhill trails?
Nope. A lot of the term would be cross-country trails.
Okay.
So there's a mix of cross-country and, the reason that the trails that are going into Abenaki are what they are is because that's what was asked for.
So you can
That's what
go.
was proposed and that was what it was approved.
So the idea is to have a corridor where anybody can go, but if somebody chooses to break off the corridor and go down a more technical trail and then back to the corridor?
Sure, yes,
So when you say the ones at Abenaki,
yes.
where are they and what are you talking? I mean,
All
there
right.
were the trails that came up, I thought they were cross-country ski trails or hiking
All right.
trails that came up and then were being widened. That's it.
Right, well, so you have the, as you with your map here, right? Everybody knows, I'm not gonna say everybody knows, but the Nordic Trails.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the trails that Wolfeboro cross-country, maintenance, they do the maintenance, they groom it. That's where all the Nordic skiing happens, they also have, there's snowshoe trails in there that are,
Yep.
they have the yellow triangle and you
Yep,
can
yep.
do a lap in there. So those trails have been there, for quite some time. And then we've also had mountain bike trails in there that, I'll call them road, call them whatever you want. They've been there for a very, 10 years that have also been within that property that were never, they only got used by the people who knew about them. And so when we came along, we did put those sort of trails on our map, spec them out as single-track trails. And over the last couple summers, talking with Christine over in that area, very specifically, and Kathy, and just saying, hey, we're thinking of building other trails in here. Do you guys, and everything was, thumbs up. Yeah, great. Sounds good. So we, I'll say as WSA, did build a real trail from the filter bed road, right where the park and that parking lot is, up on the outside of, I can't remember the name of it, Upper Bog Run, that goes to the top of Poor Hill Farm.
Do you have a map of your trails?
Yes, not
Okay.
on me.
Okay, that would help us, because,
Sure.
I've got the cross-country ski trails. I've been up there, I saw where some of the trails are, and so I'm having a hard time
Right.
linking it, and I know where the trail was that we approved in 2008 and where that was to go, but I don't know, I think it would help us if we knew where those trails were.
Yep.
And what ones were old trails.
Yep.
That have been turned into another use.
Sure. And that was actually in, some of those trails you're talking about were in this master plan, that kind of.
They're very small and,
Well, there's a bunch of maps that overlay existing trails, Nordic the trails, the existing single-track trails, and the proposed new trails. And I believe this was the map that was presented to Tavis and Dave, and that was approved.
This was given to Tavis and David Ford?
No, now don't quote me on that because I
Well-
was not here. This was all done through Bellaterra Designs. He was the one who was in the building, knocking on doors, bugging people, and, not getting this sort of thing done, that I'm aware of.
I do know someone who said that they were very close to the situation and said that it was brought to, at least I know Tavis. I don't know about Dave Ford. That it was brought to him. And
Well,
I know.
I think Dave was involved because of the spray fields and what's going on.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because
that
he seemed
All
very, very.
right. Well,
he seemed
so don't
very,
quote
very
me on
like,
that.
Because all of a sudden, when he found out about it, he was kind of shocked. So I would kind of believe that
Well, I know, and Christine was aware
Yeah.
also.
So here, I get a map like that. It's very hard.
Oh, yeah, that's not a very
Because
good.
you try to lay one on top of the other and try to figure out where they
Sure.
are. You've got a map of your trails,
Do you have maps on a website?
Yes.
There you go.
of just your trails. And
Well,
the
it
ones-
combines the Nordic, the cross-country network also.
Yeah, I guess what I'm looking for, these are the trails that are ours, these are
Yep.
the ones we've upgraded, these are the places we are. We know what's happened at the
Yep.
with the Conservation Commission, and that really isn't any of our,
Sure.
under our jurisdiction, other than that they
Right.
we'd like to know about it, and I don't have any issue with that. But it's the trails that are in Abenaki and
Yep.
that we don't have a map for, because,
Right.
I mean,
and-
it's hard to tell
Well, I think
from-
it, on your, that's a really bad printout on that. Yours is like all black. It's actually, there's a color, I could give you the PowerPoint presentation of a knife. It has a
So
much better.
I guess, again, I go back to the same thing. My only issue is on town property, if everybody's paying taxes for it, everybody should be able to use it. There are a lot of people that can't use those downhill trails.
Sure, I absolutely agree, but on the same note, though, look at Abenaki Ski Area. Not everybody can ski, not everybody can go down those trails. So there are specific.
Well, there are bunny slopes there. Almost anybody could use the bunny slopes
But,
there.
well, and there's lots of other bike trails there too that anybody else can go on. So it's what's going to draw the people in? What are people looking for in trails? And I know that's why the trails that are currently in progress.
Yeah. I've made some calls to Chamber of Commerce of Guilford and some other people, and I said, are trails a big economic boom to your area? And the resounding answer is, eh.
Well, it depends on how you go about it. I mean, that is why maybe they don't have a group like us or a plan when you can say, hey, look, you can come, you can park your car in downtown Wolfeboro, and you can go for a 20-mile mountain bike ride. And you can come back into town, you can get a bite to eat, go do your thing, it brings people into town. You look at studies against that, the town of, what's the one way up in Maine? There's another ski area way up there too, but anyways, the town was completely depressed.
Bethel?
What's it called?
Bethel, Maine?
No, it was actually further north than
Bennington,
east.
Vermont has done well with biking.
Yeah, and so anyways, the NEMBA group went in there and built trails, and it has been an incredible bonus for that town. They're doing very well. Yeah, another good example would be Burke, Vermont. Whoever heard of Burke, Vermont, whoever went there now, the place is amazing, very busy,
Yeah.
lots of people coming in.
Well, like Bennington, Vermont. Bennington is a very big biking community. Brody and, now, you got to remember, I'm not anti-bike. My son Brody was the New Hampshire and New England criterium and road race champ for
Yeah.
3 years in New Hampshire, and he won the Bike Up the Mountain series. He rode 13 mountains, Mount Washington twice and everything, and won the series at 14 years old, in an under 18 age group.
Sure.
I bike 1,000 miles a summer at least, and I love biking. But I just want to make sure that if we're paying $30,000 or $40,000 a year for maintenance, who's going to do the maintenance?
Well,
If
we
have
can get
extra
to that. I
light-
think right now, we're still trying to figure out what we have.
Right.
What has been built, and from that,
So currently, the only things we see that are like current,
Yeah.
that are like in process, is to complete the 2 trails on the front side of Abenaki. So the climb trail
okay?
and the big downhill trail on the front.
And those are ones I'd like to see laid out in relationship to Abenaki.
There's a good picture right here I can show you.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 more proposed trail that were part of that initial design that would go, again, a climb trail and and not quite the same scale of a downhill trail, much smaller, but from Filter Bed Road to the top of Porfield Farm. And as far as anything goes, right as of now, that was the package that would have been, that was in process.
Okay, and how much of it have you done?
So the climb trail is probably 80% complete or more. They did not finish a part of it because of the other work that was going on in Abenaki with the snowmaking system.
So where do you come up, does it come up around that snowmaking? Because
Yep.
Brian, you and I were up there, and I was up at the head of the tow rope, whatever
Okay.
that house is, and then we went
Yep.
over to I'm up in the woods, not down at Abenaki.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, there was something off to the right.
So you're looking downhill?
Yeah, we walked down, and
Yes.
then there was a trail, and it looked like it was being worked on.
Yes, that would be the climb trail is over there.
That's the climb trail. Okay.
Yes. And so that was, all spec'd out at a certain grade, so anybody can, it's below 7% or something.
So where are all those grades? Was that all, Bellatari had all that? Where is that?
He was the general contractor to complete all that work. The actual work was done by a subcontractor. And they're going to come back in the spring, hopefully, and finish that trail.
But do you have the specs of all that's supposed to be, who has that spec? I mean, it's on town property.
This is where we're lacking. So at the same time, the BoS was having this, what's going on, who's going, at the same time as WSA and working through the Yum Yum shop and all that, we were having similar issues. And that is, where we were actually very happy to be here because things were not going as we would like to see them either. So when you ask for a spec, that's an excellent question. I don't have it. WSA does not have it. We have this line on this map.
Yeah, which
All right.
does nothing for us.
So, and I believe that was also the main issue when the larger downhill trail was being built, is it was described to certain folks, but it was never spec'd out as it's going to be, take up 40 feet of, trail space. The actual trail is going to be 20 feet wide, blah, 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 all those things. We don't not have that either. And so we are also in the process of trying to formalize that process, basically a contract, So somebody can look at a contract and they know what they're getting.
Dave, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're building something,
Yep,
somebody's building something for you,
right.
wouldn't you want to know how wide it is, how deep it is, what stumps are coming out,
Yes,
what is the slope of the project?
all those things.
And you don't have any of that.
We, as WSA, does not, because in some sense, we did not approve those trails. We were not paying for those trails.
Who would have that information?
That would be Bellaterra Designs.
Well, I guess somebody better get in touch with him.
I thought at the meeting we were at that we were told that he was part of single track.
He was, or I'll say is, we like to say is, but he was not on the board because at the same time, he could not be on the board or really do anything because he's also the general contractor who's the one getting on the work. And we thought that was a conflict of interest. Right, so.
I would think, I would want to know what's going on. What's the
Yeah,
extent?
well, we all do. I mean, and I think.
What's the extent of the project? How many feet or
Yes.
whatever, how wide?
And there was a spec for how many feet of trail was to be built. I do not have the number, but I know that number does exist.
Type of gravel, I'm sure that's important to bikers. What type of gravel base is it? I assume it's some kind of,
No, nothing was brought in.
Bluestone,
Everything, no, there was nothing brought in. Everything that the trails were built out of is out of material that is just
Okay.
on site.
but who has that information? The trail maker?
Yes.
So what was the pile of dirt at the top of the hill, not yours?
I don't know what pile of dirt you're referring to.
I think we need to be cautious on that because I believe that may have been the earthen start ramp for the Twister Trail.
Okay.
For the Alpine Hill, because I do believe they built an earthen starting ramp as opposed to having to make a snow one every year.
All right, well, that's why I was asking, because was it theirs or is it ours? Because we've been doing work up there, who knows whose dirt it is?
Oh, somebody knows who's.
Yeah, now we know.
I think we need to.
Yeah, I'd like, Brad, I mean, you've done some building of trails and and where we are here and where we may want to head.
Been on a few of these over my time. Yeah, I think moving forward, I think what's important is for us to get a copy of the plan, the map, showing the location of the trails in relation to what, how they match up with the ski trails of the one that we have here and stuff. And also, as Dave said, it's going to be real important that we get the design, the plans that, what's the other group's name, Bellaterra is working off of, so we know, as Dave said, what are we looking at for grades, disturbance, slopes, what's going to be, are they going to be seeded back in, drainage, all that kind of stuff is real important, especially on the town land here that we
Absolutely.
have. And also, as I mentioned earlier too, I'd want to see where they're also going to be crossing some of our other trails we have in there, where those crosses are going to happen, how that's going to be maintained, whether it's a snowshoe trail, which isn't as critical, obviously, as it would be for a set cross-country ski trail with a track.
Yes.
You would want the bikes riding through those.
Well, they're
and
not
stuff.
right, they're not
Yeah.
made for winter.
Right. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so this wouldn't be any winter use then.
Correct.
But, so there's a lot of things I think we need, to go in steps here. I think that's one of the first things that we really need to have is the plans, the location, to start from there and then kind of work out from that. And as we talked really earlier, communication is going to be the biggie, making us aware and you guys aware. So we're all on the same page.
Yes.
That's what's going to be important, to have this move forward and in a good way that we can all work with and know what's there. So those are kind of my points, is getting copies of those plans and the layout and everything.
Right, and we're in the same process because moving forward, there will be a written contract with that information.
Yep.
You just mentioned something that I hadn't heard before, because I was under the impression these were going to be year-round. This is summertime only, you said?
These downhill, the ones that are currently being built, yes.
Okay,
They're
but
not made
not all the trails are just summertime.
Currently, they are because we don't groom or we don't do anything for fat biking in Abenaki.
Okay.
The only grooming we do for currently is in Fernald Station. So those trails, we actually have a groomer and advertise, and they are for fat biking.
Okay, so that is
So-
the fat.
That's all there is, yes.
These trails are for mountain bikes as opposed to the fat bikes.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that.
Well,
You can ride
I know
any
they
kind of
can-
bike you want.
I know they can do more than one thing, but
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just saying, it sounds to.
Yes, they're not made to be used during winter.
Okay.
because I know at one point we had the fat bike, what, a tire bike or
Yes.
whatever they are called, ask us to use the snowmobile trails.
Yes.
And they want to do that.
No, this snow, it was the Nordic Trails at Abenaki. And
Okay.
that was like an experimental thing where there were a few
Now, they were
trails,
going to build new trails.
which has not happened yet either.
Okay. So I think this is where we
Yes.
got at, is what are they going to be building? What are the specs?
Correct.
Where are we heading? If there are fat tire bikes, then they want, of course, where we're going to put them.
Yep,
Because we
absolutely.
can't use up all the space.
Yep.
For a certain type and then have other people come through. And that's why I think, I kind of want to see a site plan of the area. I think with all the trails on it, and so we get a good picture of what is there.
And we do
and
have
how
that.
wide you're going to make a trail and how much is going to be cut down and
Absolutely.
how it's going to change the look.
Yes.
Safety plans, safety plans. Linda and I looked at
Yep.
some of them, and some of them, I can say that my 7 or 8-year-old son, if he saw those, he'd be like, wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would also worry about him going off one of the corners and down into a 20-foot ravine.
Yeah. But they're actually, though, built in such a way where that really doesn't happen.
I think of the model of the Wolfeboro Snowmobile Association in terms of what they've done with signage. And if you're a beginner, there's signage that'll
Yes.
say, this is a beginner trail versus expert, dangerous. So I would assume that there would be signage that would direct people for, to your point, Brian,
Yeah.
whether it's an expertise or the
But a set-
skill level needed to go on this path.
And there is a
versus
standard
that
set of
path.
signs that you would find if you went like to a mountain bike, like call it Killington. When you go there and you look at the signs, it's very clear, is this a green or a blue, a black, a double black? Just they're coded the same way as a ski area.
Yeah, but the little kids aren't going to read the signs, and if they read them, they're not going to care.
No, and honestly, what I've been told is all those big trails, the scary trails, as you've been calling them, any little kid could ride down those and just ride over every little thing. There's no
Yeah.
jumping in the air. You don't have to do that. You can just ride over everything and ride around.
Seven-year-old boy, the first thing they're going to do, woo!
Yes.
But it's not as easy as it sounds, though, either.
We used to jump off the roof of my friend's ranch house because we could go off the roof and hit the deep slope of his front yard and go as fast as we could across the street. So
So, and these
kids
trails
do crazy things.
they are specifically designed with all those factors in mind of who's using them, what are they meant.
Now, with a mention of the snowmobile trail, that's exactly something that I've thought of.
Just a waste of time.
The biggest set of trails in the state is the snowmobile trails. You have 100 years of expertise in how they've connected their trails, had all their different clubs. It's a perfect template for what you guys are doing going forward.
And we also need the site plan, but we also need from Dave Ford what area up on those spray fields have to be kept.
Yep.
And what area is free. Because I know there were fields that we no longer sprayed because they went down into towards Merrill Lake. And we took all and put them on the other side. So we need to define that, the town, but we need you to give us some information on trails, and so we know what we're talking about.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
if we're going to use town land, I believe we need to hold a public hearing, so the public has a chance to come in and give us input on whether that's what they would like.
And there were many more proposed trails in the Abenaki area. There were probably, there's 2 there, there's probably 6 more other trails that were proposed, future.
Well, and I think that's what we got to get our handle
Yeah,
around.
well, that's what I'm
Where
just
we
saying
are
is there is
today, where you had hoped us to go, and then I think we all need to look at all the trails and paths that we have a good mix for everybody. And I think that's where you were, Brian. We need that mix from the walking trail. And I think
And I think Fernald is a good, model there too, what's been done over there. Everybody, anybody can bike in there.
Yeah.
Anybody can walk in there.
And it wouldn't be for fall use?
What's that?
The trails would be available for
Oh, absolutely.
fall use, right?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, just not winter.
And spring,
And spring, right.
because,
As
there were-
conditions pertain.
Yeah.
There were signs put up in on an entrance to Sewell Woods by my house, and all the kids in the neighborhood came up to me and said, how come we can't ride on the trails? Because it said no bikes, no bikes. They meant no bikes on the single-track trails, but the kids thought they couldn't go on the stone dust trails, too. So we're going to have the right signage
Right.
and everything, and the right information out there for everybody. And by the way, I just heard that they had a snowmobile that went into Sewell Woods. There was a person that got hurt in Sewell Woods cross-country skiing.
Because of a snowmobile?
No, the snowmobile went into our
That's what I mean.
yeah, our safety rescue snowmobile went in to help someone who was injured in there.
Oh, okay.
So if accidents are happening just in cross-country skiing, bike accidents are going to happen.
Yep, and that actually, working with fire rescue was actually part of the plan.
And are these technical downhill trails, are they going to be more maintenance required? Are they going to be something that
More
needs to
than
be, than the rail trail that probably hasn't had dirt put on it in
Yeah, the
what?
short answer is yes.
Yes.
The more traffic you see on these trails, the more maintenance is required, and it's a never-ending process.
And I would assume just the design of the trails on the side of a hill with water rushing down and,
Yeah, but when they have so been designed so that water, I mean, they should stay dry, they should not get washed out.
Yeah,
we slipped down a little bit, didn't we?
we did in a few places, but we didn't go all the way down. So I think we need to get the plan.
Yes,
You know,
agree.
and then we need to decide what one we want, and then we're going to have to decide on what the partnership is going to be and who's paying for what.
Yes, because I
so-
know an MOU has already been in process between WSA and the town of Wolfeboro.
For the Board of Selectmen, it's with the Conservation Commission. Have you?
No, I have a draft which WSA provided.
Correct.
Christine, I have that draft.
Right.
But we have not done anything with it, and I believe that was discussed when we had the meeting last time, that we would continue to work on that.
Okay. So at some point, we need to see the draft of it. I have no idea.
Absolutely.
And-
Yeah,
and-
and it was proposed that we'd probably have an MOU for different properties.
Each
where we
individual
would
tract of land,
where we would
correct.
tract of land.
And I wonder whether we want MOU or whether we want a license agreement. You know, I think we should look at the different options. I think we need to make sure, you know, if we give you a license agreement or some kind of a easement or lease or whatever we get, that it would put the ownership on you and your maintenance of the trails. And that's what we're going to need to decide, because I don't think the town is going to want to add a whole lot to its budget each year to maintain trails.
Yeah, going back to the snowmobile trail again, there are pieces of trails that have been shut down where new owners have taken over property and said, nope, you're not taking snowmobiles through here anymore. There are clubs that have been struggling to have dues because a lot of people aren't snowmobiling anymore. The numbers have dropped way off. And so it's getting to a point, if the same thing happens 5, 8, 10 years down the road, are we going to have a set of hills that then who's going to pay for, who's going to maintain?
Well, I think that's when we look at whether it's an MOU, whether it's a license
Licensing
agreement,
agreement,
exactly
yeah.
what, and we should talk to town council and take a look at what is the best long-term for both of us. I think that's what we need to take a look at. And the Conservation Commission, you have an MOU with them?
We are in the process of working on one.
Okay.
All right, it's very similar to the same one between LRCT and the one we gave to Jim.
Okay, and will you pass that, will the Conservation Commission put it through an attorney? A town attorney?
Yes, we will. I'm trying to think if it's already been done or not. And I don't-
Okay,
I
it'll
don't
be a
think so.
town attorney,
Yeah.
you'll put it through, okay. That's the only thing.
Sure.
Is there anything, I don't think there's that much more we can do until we get a site plan and maps and
plans.
dimension.
Town land, something from David in reference
Yes,
to
David, we need
Sprayfields.
him, yeah, we need that from David to what land is available.
Yep.
And same thing with Abenaki, what land is used and what land is still available on that. Does anybody else have anything else they're looking for? Nope.
Linda, the only thing that I
Yep.
would like to add, you know, one of the reasons for this, we've got these contractors coming in and working on property, and for all intents and purposes, I'm sure they're insured, but we as the town need to know what their insurance riders are, because we have certain parameters that we have to hold them to, and if we don't do that and something happens, it's going to fall on the taxpayer versus the liability insurance of the contractor. So I think that's a big thing going forward, that we've got to, before anybody puts a shovel in the ground and does any type of work, that the town has to have that rider in place.
And would that be part of the contract with us?
That could
Probably.
be part of the contract with the contractor that you choose. I can
Yes.
provide a copy of the town insurance requirements. We would just need a rider, and we get them all the time.
Perfect. That'd be great.
Who's doing the actual building? Who's doing the shoveling? Is it Highland?
No. There was a main trail builders, I believe, did the climb trail. And the name of the people who, folks who started the downhill trail are from Arkansas. I don't know that.
They're from Arkansas?
Yes.
They came all the way up from Arkansas?
Yep.
Interesting.
They're honestly like top of the line. If you look at builders across the country, they're up there. So it wasn't a shabby group of guys.
No. How is Highland? Is Highland a good group?
Yeah, as far I know, I just go there. So I don't.
Well, they started with that, and now they're trail builders, is what they do.
Yep.
So how long do you think it'll take you to get us a site plan and all that together?
That's a hard question to answer.
The only reason is because I'd like to give a target date for next meeting, and there's
Gotcha.
no need to have a meeting until you can
Right.
get that together.
So the to-do then on WSA's part is what exactly?
Well, we're looking for, and Brad, you say with me, we're looking for a site plan with, and you can tell what with.
Yeah, with detailed specs of the trail to be built, the trails to be built, showing grades, drainage, erosion control, those kind of things, anything you would need, for any type of building project, groundwork-wise, obviously. Types of materials to be used if they do bring in materials or spec out that they're using on-site materials. I don't know if they're going to have compaction requirements in there, things like that, any kind of the details itself of building
Right.
the trail.
Okay.
Environmental
You have
impact,
anything to add?
near
Yeah.
wetlands, near streams,
Yep.
runoff that could cause issues in wetlands and streams and other things like that. A list of contractors, who's going to be there, their insurances, as Jim has said.
Dan, just out of curiosity, do you have any as-builds of the stuff that you've already done at Fernald or anything? Because the as-builds would be great.
We do not.
Okay.
They didn't bring any materials in. They used stuff that was on-site already.
I think we as a town need to get,
As-builds.
yes, I think we need to do a lot better at getting as-built, and I don't know if you can get as-built of what those trails are at Fernald Station.
Of course you can.
As far as specs of materials being used?
Yeah,
or-
and site plan, I think we should need to have some kind of a record in the town. We're finding that we have okayed things and we have no finished as-built, and then 10 years down the line, somebody says, I want to do this, and you go, well, I don't know what's there. And so I think that's what I'd like to see us stop getting ourselves into. Luke, do you have anything you think needs to be
I
added?
think the as-built, and just a detailed map of, even not a detailed map, but a map of what we have currently up there, so we can see it like on an actual, not the little lines, but on an actual map of Abenaki, would be very helpful going forward.
Now, is
So-
there an online map for the trails over in Fernald and all those?
Yes.
And is that on,
It's on the Wolfeboro Single Tracks.
okay, so your
Website.
trails are also on their site?
Doesn't the Conservation Commission have it on their page?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Can we see if we can get it on that? I'm trying to get so somebody can go to the town website and find the information they'd like, and that would be nice if we could get those.
Yeah, I was working with Peter Goodwin last year to develop accurate maps of that, so
And then
Well,
maybe-
I'll talk to
I'll see
Peter.
where it stands.
Maybe on your site, have a link to the Single Track Alliance would be great, too. So then people go, oh, trails, oh, more trails.
So Do you have an estimate? We have, and also we know that you have some wants in the spring, so we don't want to drag our
Right.
feet here.
Well, I'm hoping what you're asking for shouldn't be hard to produce by the contractor.
Okay?
I'm available next Thursday.
The days that we have the possibility, we meet on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. So if I look at February, we've got the 9th and the 23rd.
I'd probably say the 23rd, because the 8th is like way too soon.
Yeah, it's not, it's real close. So shall we tentatively say Wednesday, the 23rd at 6:30 here, and we'll do another work session? Does that work?
It'll work for you. I'll be in Las Vegas, thank you.
Are you gonna? Oh, thanks.
Day after my birthday, no guarantees.
Oh, well, we'll have to bring in a cake for you. All right, so we'll do the 23rd. You'll get some staff person here for us, Jim?
I will have somebody here.
Okay. So February. All righty. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Anything you want us to cover before we're finished tonight?
The only other thing I would love to see some kind of nice, when you can get to it and get it together, a PowerPoint presentation that shows your mission, your goals, compares what you're doing to other areas, shows a plan for connecting to other areas, something from you, not from Andrew Lester.
Well, it's all, I mean, honestly, it's all here. So, put a little spit and polish on this and call it done. I mean, this was paid for to have done for this purpose. So it basically does exist, what you're asking.
I think with this, at least when I talked to Andrew Lester, some of the stuff out on it has future trails going down through our spray fields.
Yep.
So, and whether that's even possible.
Sure.
So I guess that's why it would be nice, and it would be nice to have it in good color. So it's clear what trail, maybe you could change, so the one color is what our towns, what others.
And actually, I'd like to show you at some point this right here, because it's way
Okay.
better than I think what you're looking at. Because I have colors,
Okay,
different, what's what.
okay. I'm going to go to Dave Senical.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
He always does the adjournment.